So here's kind of the update. Once again, welcome to the stream. And here at Gaming is Magic, we were kind of going through some issues there. We were gone for about 3 weeks, and things kind of, well, Tirek decided to lay the smackdown on us, I think. Either that or we got invaded by a bunch of changelings, and the people that agreed to do these streams with me were apparently changelings, and they weren't really anything else. But anyways, so it's just going to be me, Dratta, here, and I'm going to be doing these streams from here on out. And so that's, things kind of just fell apart. And I'm still going to try to do these streams as Gaming is Magic, and we'll see where it goes from there. On other news, I will be attending TruckCon, BronyCon, and GenCon. I will also be at Ponyville Cider Fest. So look for me there. I will be participating in the competitive tournaments and specifically core format. So check it out. I will be there. I am also in the middle of creating a mini-series YouTube series. But enough about me, and let's get into the actual reason for this stream tonight. I always find it difficult to try to stream alone, so bear with me here as we try to get this stuff started and so forth. So starting off tonight, we are going to be going into my favorite method of deck building. Well, yeah, deck building can be a challenge, and I've always tried to be really, really creative. So I put the question out there. I only got really 2 people to respond. Oh, well, yeah, you know. So let's go ahead and look at this here. This is Ponyhead. You all should know it. You should all love it. It is the best resource, I think, that's ever been created. And actually, the first main we're going to look at was suggested to have, the challenge was set by Leo. Living Silver challenged me to use Loving Ruler. Now, this is a Harmony card. This was something that I've kind of had to. I've never really looked at her. I wanted to build something with her, so let's go ahead and start with Loving Ruler, and so give me a moment to bear with me here. So, Loving Ruler is a main that I haven't really tried to use too frequently. Because of the fact that she's really difficult to try to flip. So one of the issues with a lot of the Crystal Games mains was the flip requirement. And that can be a challenge to try to work around. And it's a little tricky, but she does have a great ability, which... Hold on, let me bring that up, actually. Give me one moment here, folks. So right now, I apparently was not prepared for this. So let's go ahead and look at her actual ability here. Like I said, this is a great resource. So, Loving Ruler. So what she does is what you do is you pay, opponents pay +2 to play friends here. So she's a really good main if you can get her flipped. I don't like her in the fact that opponents pay +2 to play friends at a location. So the way we're going to build this deck is try to build it as a taxing deck. And that's what we're going to try to do. So, and because it's Harmony, and I'm not the best deck builder in Harmony, but let's go ahead and jump into this. So what we're going to do is to start. So what I'd like to do is to point out, since it's Harmony, F-stop. I mean, come on. She's a white, she's a Generosity main, and we're just going to go ahead and grab F-stop. Because, you know what? F-stop for days. There's no reason not to use it if you have it. I mean, really, you really can't use anything else in Harmony that's going to do the same thing. I mean, I guess you could use some of the core legal stuff, but you're going to be playing events to get back events. There is no substitute for F-stop. With that out of the way, I'm just going to say F-stop right away. So what we're going to do is we're going to look through here, and we're going to look for... So let me kind of tell you guys how I deck build. I look for the core cards of a deck. Every deck type has core cards that you're going to have to run. So I'm actually going to jump off the friend list here. Usually I'll try to build with friends in mind, but the way we're going to do this is we're really not looking for friends for this deck. I'm going to build this in the anticipation that main 6 party hard is a thing, and that's how we're going to try to do this. So actually I would like to include 2 copies of Rarity, Generous Pony, because that will help me get power up there, to give a little bit extra power. And then what I'm going to do is actually, because what I'd like to do is get it to where, well, so I use Ponyhead to kind of look at what cards are available, and right off the bat, Octavia, Harsh, Judge, 3. Always use 3 of her if you can, unless the deck is trying not to do too much with that. So this is kind of going to be our lineup. This is going to be kind of toolboxy. So Loving Ruler, going back to Loving Ruler real quick. Loving Ruler requires you, when an opponent's friend enters play here, put a shield counter on this card. Then if there are at least 5 shield counters on this card, remove them and turn it over. That is really hard to do. If you're playing aggro, I can see you getting it flipped ASAP, but we're going to cheat the system. Because cheating the system is the way to go. So we're going to go into friends. We're going to go to the color of kindness, or yellow if you prefer. And let's go ahead and look for a card. It was in EO, I believe. I'm still looking for it. Give me a moment. I'll find it. It's a Fluttershy card. There it is. Fluttershy backup vocals. Okay. Fluttershy backup vocals. When this card enters play, you may choose one. Put another friend or resource into its owner's hand, or turn a main character over. It's a 4 AT cost, 2 yellow wreck. So here's my thinking on this particular strategy. We're going to use her for the sole purpose of flipping our main, getting that main to turn over. I guess it wouldn't be technically called flipping. It would be called turning over. And the objective is to get that done immediately. Because if we can get Princess Cadence Loving Ruler onto her boosted side, that would be phenomenal. So we're going to use Fluttershy backup vocals to do that. And then we're going to have to color fix for that. So color fixing, we only need to fix 2 colors. So we don't really need any of these colorless cards, because we only have to color fix 2 colors. So how do we do that? Well, the easiest way I have found, and the most resourceful way I have discovered to do this, is since it's Harmony, we could go ahead and use Seabreeze's Flower, which also doubles up as resource for movement. So let's go ahead and put those in. So that way we can give a character yellow until the end of the phase. Then what we're going to do is include 3 motivational speeches. Motivational speech is a great resource from Sequestria, and it's a common, so it's really easy to get. But you should really, in any deck where you need to color fix as heavily as possible, this is the best way to do it. And then we're going to run 3 Singing Barrel. Now here's the problem. We're focusing so much on getting our main flipped. This is all we're going to run as far as color fixing and getting things moving. The rest of this deck is going to be all events. So how do we do this? Well, this is now going to become a game where you need to tax the opponent as heavily as possible. And there's a variety of ways to do this. By making it so it's harder for your opponent to play cards, we're probably going to want to go back into Friends here, go back to the Generosity color. I'm using the technical terms here. I don't know why I bother, because most people just say white, blue, yellow. You know, most of us just use that. But the actual technical term is Generosity for the color white. Okay. Now, we need to think about this. So one thing we could do is we could use Sweetie Belle here, Stitch by Stitch. Stitch by Stitch would allow us to create what's called Showy 3. This taxes movement. But I don't think taxing the movement is really going to be that big. What we want to do is stop them from playing cards. So we talked about this in one of my earlier streams. We're going to go ahead and put 2 plaid stripes. The reason why only 2 is because it's a unique friend. And you need to pay attention to that. So you can only have 1 in play at a time. Then we're going to use Discord, Captain Was. And there's a reason for this. Because we're going to drop a troublemaker in this deck. Basically what we want to do is eliminate the power for players to confront. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for a troublemaker. And it's one everyone should know. It's called Changeling Mimics. And this stacks with our, this will stack with Plaid Stripe Spoonie. So what we're going to do is we're going to run 3 copies of Changeling Mimics. Now, the trick is that we want to make sure that our opponent is fully under our control. And the best way to do this is to go ahead and put, let me think, what do I want to use? So I guess we could use Storm King, but that's a pretty hard card to get. I'm thinking about throwing in Vicious Vengeance into this deck. So yeah, maybe, well, maybe not that. Maybe what we should do is run Starlight, Glimmer, Expose, and Equality. This will allow us to apply movement to our main character. So this will help us get her to problems for 1 AT on the following turn, and this will help get her to where she needs to be. So let's say your opponent realizes they can't do anything at your problem, so they're going to try to go over to their problem. Well, now they don't have the +2 anymore, so let's go ahead and put a troublemaker there that allows us to move our character to a problem that they're going to try to play stuff at. So with that out of the way, we still have about 11 slots left. So let's take a look at what else we can add into this deck. So one of the things I was thinking about is movement is going to be very important. But there's an issue with white, and that is movement is very lacking. So a lot of times I'm looking at the deck list now and I'm saying, okay, we're pretty good there. So we need to figure out how to do this. So what we could do is I'm thinking about putting in Rarity's Epiphany, which will allow us to dismiss a friend without an attached resource. Put a resource from your discard pile into play. We could include that. But what we really need are, we're going to have to run Cracking the Case. This is a staple card for this type of deck. I would run 2. We don't need any more than that. We should probably run a Petite Sneeze, but it's going to be a little harder with that 2 card. Well, we technically already have 3 in the form of Seabreeze's Flower here. So what we're going to have to do is figure out how we're going to start taxing the opponent. We're already taxing them with Plaid Striped Spoonie, and then forcing them to not be able to play stuff with Princess Cadence Loving Ruler. So what we need to do is we need to find other ways to prevent our opponent from being able to do stuff. So what we can do is let's take a look at our resource availabilities. So what we can do is, well, let's do something creative, actually. So one thing we can do with all of our color fixing is go into here into resources. Well, let's go ahead and put 2 Changeling Thrones, because we're going to need those if we're going to be scoring any points. And plus it provides taxation. To play cards during face-off, your opponent plays +1. Now, what we need to figure out is figuring out how to... I'm looking for the color purple. So one thing that we want to do is we want to make their friends as useless as possible. I know that's very offensive. Sorry to any friends out there, but they're all useless. Friends are useless. Who needs friends? Don't take that literally, please. Do not take that literally. I need friends. I have friends, I think. But you know what really hurts friends? When you have a study session. Yeah, study session. We gotta study. Can't have friends when we're studying, right, Twilight? So anyways, enough with the memes. So we're gonna use 2 copies of study session. Now, this is you're probably wondering why are we splashing for study session? Because we need to control their friends to make sure that they can't confront. So that's what we're going to do with that. Okay, so we still have 5 card slots. This is looking like an interesting deck list. I have no idea how it'll hold up in actual play, but we'll see what we can accomplish. So we threw in the F-stops, but I'm starting to see that we don't really have too many events. So let's use up the rest of the 5 here. So we actually have more resources and TMs and events. So we're going to use 3 It's Gonna Work. This is to keep our Changeling Mimics into play. And now we have 2 card slots left. So what we're going to do is we're pretty much going to use... We're pretty much probably going to use either It's Cleaning Up or... Well, why don't we go with Rarity's Epiphany? 2 Rarity Epiphanies. So what this is basically is that you're going to be sitting behind a troublemaker. Confronting, using your mimics to hold those at bay. Meanwhile, you're probably going to be using, a lot of your taxation to keep your opponent from getting anywhere. Now, the rarities, the Captain Waz's, the harsh judges, this is pretty much TM control with taxation. The F-stops are there to keep recycling your It's Gonna Works and your Rarity Epiphanies. This is to keep your resources in play, to keep them coming back. Now, this is a lot of AT. That is the problem with this deck. You're going to be spending a lot of AT, but it should be an interesting deck, and what it's going to do is that you're sitting behind a problem, confronting, but you're trying to stop your opponent from confronting. So let's go ahead and move on to the final part of the deck. So I know a lot of people don't like to talk about the problem deck, but we're going to talk about problems. Because how are you going to score points if you can't confront a problem? So there are a few really good choice control problems. And the best ones to pair it up with is definitely this. Gunked Up Gala. Opponents pay +1 to play friends here. Stack that with your main and then your, on top of your, where is it? On top of your, where is it? Your Plastrite Spoonie. If you get all that tax, that's 4 AT to play a friend that's 2 or less AT. So we're definitely going to use that. Now, another way we can do this is we're going to run Down the Drain. And then we're going to use also Unreasonable Demands. And, of course, good old Blackmail. Now, you might be wondering, what about all the harmony problems? And I'm like, I generally find the newer problems more effective than a lot of other decks. So, this is a very intriguing deck. And actually, I have half of mine now to actually fully build it. Now, you're probably wondering, well, Dratta, you got 4 problems there. None of them are a starting problem. Don't worry, we're getting to that. The best starting problem we could probably use in this scenario is we're going to go over here, and we're going to look for Under Lock and Tree. Now, there is a reason for this. Remember how I said that flipping your main is going to be very difficult unless you can draw your Fluttershy backup vocals? Well, and backup vocals requires a 2-color rec requirement. So you're going to use Under Lock and Tree. When you put your main at Under Lock and Tree on turn 2 or whatever, it's going to have 2 power. So generally speaking, what you want to do is you want to start off with Fluttershy backup vocals in your hand. If you do not draw a Fluttershy backup vocals, you need to mulligan and at least try to get one. In the meantime, you're probably going to be using your other white cards to kind of get you through until you can get there. So let's go ahead and take a look at this full deck list. So here we are. We have our deck pretty much constructed. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit copy the link, hit OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and paste this. Give me 1 second here. Okay. So here we go. This here is the official deck list. So here it is. Our Taxation Loving Ruler deck. This is a really surprisingly efficient deck. I have to admit, it'd be interesting to see how this will hold up. But this would be how I would build a Loving Ruler deck. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and copy this and paste it into the, I'll be doing this for all the deck lists. So if people want to see them and stuff later, we'll be able to do that. So that way people can reference these stacks and potentially build them. And you guys can tell me how they fare or whatever. That's entirely up to you. When I load these up into YouTube, they'll be there as well. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and talk about the next deck. So another person had suggested a main, and we'll go ahead and use that main now. And it was good old Capper. Now, to limit the number of cards that we're going to use, I'm going to just make this a core deck. because I know that there's a lot of cards out there that, people are like, well, we got Harmony, we got Core, we got Nightmare, whoever plays Nightmare. I mean, seriously. Except for Nightmare Moon. Ha. See what I did? No? Okay. Well, so we're going to use Capper. Now, Capper is one of the new mains from Sequestria and Beyond, which is pay 2 to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Put a card from your discard pile into your hand for each card with even power revealed. This way, then shuffle your deck and turn this card over. That is some serious recursion, I have to admit. But let's go ahead and build a deck around him. Now, this is an intriguing deck concept because every card will need to be even. But I have an interesting concept here. Let's just start by, first off, getting this out of the way. I feel like that this would be a staple in any Capper deck. And it is a troublemaker called Easy as Pie. So when this card is uncovered, you may turn a main character to its start side. Now, you're probably asking, why are we using this? Why would we want Capper to be back to 1? Well, we want to fire him multiple times for maximum recursion. And that's what we're going to try to do. This is going to be a complete recursion deck. So how are we going to do this? Well, I think that the best way to start is start off with our staples of any deck. And I think that one way we could do this is use his recursion to the maximum. Now remember, they have to be 2 power, or even power, sorry. So we have to make sure that everything has an even power. So how do we maximize this? Well, to start, let's go ahead and do this. First off, Discord Captain was. It's a 2 AT for 2 white rag that allows us to return our Easy as Pies for maximum flip consistency. So yeah, I like that. That gives us essentially 6 fires of recursion. Now remember also that the troublemaker Easy as Pie, let me get back there real quick, is a 6. So that means that she can be flipped for Capper, which is great because we need that to happen. So let's go ahead and go back here. Go back to white. And if you can't follow along too easily with me clicking all over the place, once again, these decks will be in the description and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and think about how we're going to build this deck. Now, the challenge of this is actually pretty interesting. I'm thinking that, trying to keep things even is going to be a challenge. So let's go ahead and keep our rarity generous ponies, because these are even. And when they come into play, they give us +2 power. We can use Capper to return those and so forth. I do like Princess Cadence, so we'll go ahead and use those as well. And then what I'm going to do is, once again, so basically what I'm going to do is, this is actually going to be an intriguing deck. I haven't actually built it this way before. But imagine recursion with the most powerful color probably right now to hit the streets. We're going to go ahead and merge it with the color orange. This is to maximize our effectiveness at aggro and negation as well, or at least some control. So we're going to go ahead and use Limestone Pie. We're going to go ahead and run 2 of those. Once again, it's an even card, so it'll flip for even. Then what we will use is we'll use Big Mac for our resource removal. We will also use Rescue Party. Rescue Party is a phenomenal card. It can't be frightened, and it's an additional flip. This gives a huge advantage during face-offs. It's also 6 power. This allows us to also utilize that for recursion. So, with that taken care of, there's some of our best orange cards. But we still need a little bit more help if we're going to maximize this. So, one of the things we could do is I'd like to see a Big Mac, Applejack, Big Mouse for power counter recursion, but there's other things that we could be running that are just as effective as that. So let's go ahead and look through this and think about what we can add in. We probably could run an airdrop. That would help. But let's go ahead and throw in, to make some people happy, we'll run 3 Trixie Rock Farmers. I'm sure that Hithrock will get a field day with that one. So I happen to like Trixie Rock Farmer, and she's also 2 power, so she flips for even. This will allow us to keep our power low, but also allow us to maximize the effectiveness of our friends. So basically what's happening here is that we're going to use our Tempest Shadows to get back our capper to continuously recycle everything. So we don't want to stack up on friends too much because of the fact that what we need to do is keep things simple. You need to keep your deck building simple. If you think that you need more friends than you actually do, your decks can actually suffer. So you want to keep things simple. Just get the essentials. Rescue Party is a great orange card for aggro. We're going to need that to confront our problems while trying to keep everything else moving. So now we can go ahead and look at what the stuff we're actually going to be recurring actually is. So let's go ahead and look at our event. So we'll have Brotherly Love here, which is an event that is 4 power, and you put 2 +1 power counters on one of your friends. This is great. That's exactly what I'd like. I want 3 of those, and it also flips for capper. This will help us maintain power on a lot of our friends. Next up is, that's pretty much the big event here in core format. I would totally encourage running this because we can flip it. We can do a lot of stuff with that. Now, a lot of you might be saying, well, run Barrel Through for the additional flip. But this deck isn't about fighting troublemakers. It's about maintaining a constant event abilities to keep things in play and to try and decimate the other player. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at white-orange multicolor events. And you're probably wondering, why am I going into white-orange? Well, we got Hearts as Strong as Horses. Put a card with at least 3 power from your discard pile into your hand, and the opponent discards 2 cards, or your characters get +3 power until the end of the turn. Sign Me Up, because it's also 4 power, so it's going to flip for an even. And that is great. We want that. That is a great ability. And it's probably one of the stronger events out there. So we can constantly recur our Hearts as Strong as Horses to go ahead and make our opponent discard. And that's great. That's what we want to do. So if we can keep recycling these, that's phenomenal. Now, another thing I thought about throwing in here is we'll make our mark because it gives us the draw power, but we really don't need that. We could throw in the Spectacle and splash in for purple, which would allow us to run Spike, Master of Ceremonies, just to completely wipe out our opponent's hand for little to no AT. And that's great, because that's a lot of recursion. In fact, I'm probably going to throw that in there. So now we have the issue where we need to go back to friends. Now, you're not going to be relying on Spike too much. But what we need to do is make sure that things are constantly moving. So we're going to go ahead and throw in 2 Spike Master of Ceremonies. This allows us to do a trigger with Hearts as Strong as Horses and the Spectacle. And as you can see, we only have 11 slots left. Now, you're probably saying, okay, we only got 3 events so far. What else can we throw in there? Well, I'm going to be blunt very, very quickly here. We're going to run 3 motivational speech, along with 2 singing barrel. Now you're like, wait, you used 3 singing barrels in the last deck. Well, this deck, we don't want to overload the color requirements. In fact, I might actually not even run Singing Barrel. Let's take Singing Barrel out, because Singing Barrel is great for splashing in the colors, but let's go ahead and do Motivational Speech. Actually, I dislike Motivational Speech. I'm just going to go with Singing Barrel. The issue with Motivational Speech, if you play it, and your opponent has an immediate dismiss, they're going to immediately dismiss motivational speech. And then Rainbow Dash gave that speech for no reason whatsoever. It's like, but it wasn't awesome. And Rainbow Dash would cry her eyes out because it was banished. Because of Rest in Pieces. And we would cry if we lost our color rec. Because colors are awesome. So we're going to use Singing Barrel. And now, the reason why we're using Singing Barrel over Motivational Speech is, yes, we wouldn't be able to play that purple during our opponent's turn anyways. But we'd be able to play it during our turn as many times as we want, as long as we color fix into it. Now, for the last 8 cards, we're going to look at some resources that are multicolors. Now, you might be wondering, why are we looking at the multicolors? Well, I have to look at the multicolors because there's like a gazillion cards in this game, and it's really easy to get lost when you're deck building. Well, I'm looking at this, and we can exhaust Applejack's Hat to put a +1 power counter on it, then add its power to another friend. We could basically bounce around power that way. And it's a 4, meaning it can flip for capper. So what we want to do is, basically the concept of this deck is to constantly be building power to be able to DFO, but not necessarily do anything with that power. So let's go ahead and go over to the color of generosity. I'm not going to be that guy. And we could use also, looking here, there's a couple things we could use. We could use Magic Wings. That friend has +7 power. That'd be fun. But mostly what I'm looking for is something in specific. And unfortunately, a lot of these, we don't have much choices for the even colors. So this might not actually be worth it, unfortunately. We could use Changeling Throne again, but I think that we're going to have to pass on that. So a lot of you guys may be wondering, where's Staff? Where is Staff? You have said stick times 30, stick times 30, stick times 30. The decks I am building would benefit from Staff Arcana. Yes, I agree. But not everyone has Staff. And I'm trying to keep these decks relative to the majority of players out there. Trying to keep things balanced for players who want to build these decks. So that's what I'm trying to do. So bear with me here as I look at the multicolored friends again, because we're looking for things to kind of fill in those remaining 6 slots that have really good abilities that are going to provide the maximum effects for our efforts. And this is all part of deck building, and you have to do it, and you have to think like, okay, if I put this in, how is that going to impact my deck? Now, we could use Orchard Blossom. This will provide us not only with recursion, but the ability to mill ourselves. We could do that, but I'm actually going to throw in Sweetie Belle Most Traditional. This will give us kind of like a look at our own deck to be able to top deck ourselves into what we need. It will allow us to mill ourselves and so forth, but it also allows us to mill the opponent if we so choose. So that's great. We need that Sweetie Belle most traditional here. And so yeah, that would be a great addition. Now the next trick is what else to add in. Let's see. What else do we have options wise for multicolor? I mean, technically we could splash for Luna, Midnight Luna. But it's a 5, so it doesn't work in this deck, despite the fact we are running the Spectacle. Normally I would put Luna in, but we're trying to run a Capper deck here, not a Midnight Sonata deck. Jamal is interesting. When an opponent moves or plays a character to this card's problem, you may exhaust that character. That's interesting, but it's a little high cost-wise. I don't think anything from Sequestria at this point is really going to help us out. So I think the best next bet is to fill out the rest of the deck, probably with Orchard Blossom. Now you're probably like, okay, why are we trying to mill ourselves? Okay, first off, we're trying to maximize the effects of Capper in this deck. We're trying to make sure that we can utilize Capper as much as possible. So we need to get our initial milling out of the way. So the best way to do that is to self-mill. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and use two Orchard Blossom. And you're probably like, but Dratta, you're missing a card. And I'm going to be like, I know I'm missing a card. I have a special slot for that card. So one of the things that we must always realize is sometimes you need an extra oomph in your play, or you need an event that has to come from somewhere, and you have to be able to make these big plays. Well, we're going to throw in one copy of I'm the Friend You Need. There is a reason for this. Because it's also a 6, so it's even, we're going to be able to flip it. If you flip it, it kind of stinks. But it's 6, so we'll work with it. The reason why we're only running one copy, though, is because the likelihood is one of those things where if you draw it, phenomenal. Now we can mill our opponent 5. We can banish an opposing friend and search our deck for a troublemaker and put it into play face up. Though we don't really want to do that because our easy as pies are supposed to be there to allow us to get into to reflip our main back to its start side. But we're still going to use I'm the Friend You Need. We're going to use one copy because we're splashing purple. We're not really looking to play the Friend You Need because that's not what this deck is trying to do. Now for the next step, the problem deck. What is a good problem deck for Capper? Well, this is going to be one that's going to be interesting. We're definitely going to run unreasonable demands. That is always going to be a problem if you're running the color white. It is going to be in your problem deck. When this problem becomes solved, you may banish a friend. It is way too good to leave out. Next up is we're going to run, because we do have a couple of resources, we do want to run Grand Opening, which is when you confront this problem, you may put a resource from your discard into your hand. This will just allow us to go ahead and get resources back. And we're going to run Gunt Up Gala because to force your opponent to pay +1 to play friends here, that's just too good. But then we're going to stop there with the color white. And you might be saying, blackmail, 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 blackmail. Do not run blackmail in a deck like this. You're supposed to be confronting with high power anyways. So we're just going to go ahead and go to the color orange. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run Applejack's Worst Nightmare. This gives our friends Stubborn. And what Stubborn does is, while our friends are exhausted, we can still confront that problem. This is important because we want to be able to continue to confront, regardless if our friends are exhausted or not. Then there's this card called So Tired. At the start of your turn, you may put a +1 power counter on any number of characters with an attached resource here. And that's actually not as useful as I thought it was. Let's go ahead and look around. Let's see. Let's go ahead and use Caught Off Guard at 1. And let's run Family Feud. No, we can only run 1. Let's go ahead and run 1 Applejack's Worst Nightmare. We'll use 2 Family Feud. And then we're going to start with the problem. Now, you're probably wondering, what's a good starting problem? Well, I'm going to say that because this deck, we want to mill ourselves as frequently as possible. Let's go ahead and start with Under Lock and Tree. This is supposed to stop things like Skystar Chicken and pretty much any other deck. And you're probably wondering, well, why not just use Trading Traditions or whatever? Well, we could. I mean, that would give us our orange without having the color fix. But I think Under Lock and Tree will help us get the power necessary to get things a little bit moving. But actually, I'm going to go ahead and take out a copy of Grand Opening. Because I'm now thinking like, okay, no. Grand Opening is great, but let's go ahead and put in a Trading Tradition. So this way you get 2 starting problems to choose from. If you're up against Skystar, I would recommend Under Lock and Tree, because you're probably not going to get off the ground fast enough. But if you're up against anything else, you can run Trading Traditions, which will allow you to color fix into your required amounts. And the nice thing is that if you can color fix your main with your Singing Barrels, you'll be able to play a Sweetie Belle Most Traditional, typically turn 3. Turn 3 or 4. And that would be great. But once again, let's go ahead and look at this deck list. Okay, let's go ahead and click here. We want to copy that. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this deck list. So here we are. This is the deck list. A very interesting deck, I have to admit. I never would have thought I'd build something like this, but it's intriguing. It's kind of a mixture between combo and aggro-ish. So actually, it's not that bad of a deck. You'll be able to handle most things. One of the things that's probably going to drive you insane is probably the troublemakers. But in the long term, you can pretty much control most of what you need with this deck list. I mean, if you really have to farm your opponent's TMs, you have Rescue Party for that. So I actually like this deck. It's got a lot of recursion. Everything is an even number. Let's just make sure of that. Yep, everything's an even number, and everything can increase in power. And that's the good part about this deck, is you're probably going to be able to get into everything you need pretty easily. Not as easily as something that's meant to go fast, but yeah. So I'll go ahead and post this in the chat as well. Once again, these deck lists will be up and available to everyone So there you guys go. There's the new deck list. That's this one right here. So that's the white-orange aggro recursion deck. That's pretty much what I see a decent Capper deck running. Trying to stay with the theme of what Capper does. Now, if anyone in the chat would like the opportunity to go ahead and decide what new deck we're going to be running, go ahead and type it out. You can go ahead and say which main or whatever. If not, I'm going to go ahead and build a deck of my own choosing. So I'll give everyone here a moment to respond. You got 10 seconds. Tell me what main and I'll build with that. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I guess I'll just build something unique. Let's go ahead and try a core deck. I'm going to try to keep it with core because core is kind of easy. Actually, you know what? Let's do something fun. So I've been wanting to build a deck revolving around Queen Chrysalis. Just to build a Chrysalis deck. So how am I going to do this? Well, it's got to be a Harmony deck because most of the Queen Chrysalis stuff is Harmony. So let's go ahead and build something interesting. So, okay, now let's wipe the slate there. Okay, so here we go, a Queen Chrysalis deck. Something I've been wanting to work on for a while. So let's go ahead and look for the main I was going to use. Let's go ahead with Commanding Queen. So we're going to use Queen Chrysalis, Commanding Queen. And before anyone says memes, I'm not building this as a meme deck. I'm trying to keep these things semi-competitive. So starting out, so let's have some fun. I'm going to use 3 Tempest Shadow Easiest Pies. And then we're just going to throw in some TMs for the fun of it. And they're all going to be Chrysalis TMs. Why? Because it's a Queen Chrysalis deck. And we're trying to keep it within Queen Chrysalis's domain. So Queen Chrysalis defeats herself. That would be intriguing, right? Alright, so now that I have my TMs out of the way and everything, let's go ahead and look for the non-colored friends that are Queen Chrysalis. Alright, and then we're going to run 3 Changeling Citizens as well. Because we want to keep this as close to a Changeling deck as possible. Now, what I'd like to do is, let's see here. Let's try something more interesting. Technically, that's a Changeling. That is Thorax, hidden amongst the ponies of the Crystal Empire. We could use Join the Herd, but I'm not going to. Let's go ahead and look for the color blue. I didn't really want to use blue, but technically we can use any color we want. And I think the way we're going to do this is we're going to use, take advantage, the full advantage of the Queen Chrysalis identity thefts. And let's go ahead and do duplicating of uniques. We'll do a unique copy deck where we copy uniques intentionally. So I think that'd be a fun little deck. So let's go ahead and look for color white or generosity. It should be generosity. So I guess we'll call this copycat deck. So what we want to do is copy uniques. That's the whole point of the deck. So we're going to need a lot of color fixing for this. So let's go ahead, let's go back, and we'll go ahead and throw in 3 singing barrel, 3 motivational speech. This should allow us to get the full copyright. And then Sea Breeze Flower for resource removal. You cannot forget that resource removal. It's so important. And then utilizing what we got here. So what this does is that it gives us a lot of color selection. So, and because the Queen Chrysalis Commanding Queen is actually a white card, I believe. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, it's a generosity card. So we have our color fix for when we take their ponies and steal them and use them to our own evil ends and torment them in green globs of, I don't even know what those are in the show. But anyways, so going ahead and looking at that. So knowing that we can take full advantage of the color fixing, let's go ahead and run 3 Applejack factory organizers. This will help us to color fix or AT fix our stuff. And then we need to get creative about what we're going to do. So one of the things that I need to do is make sure that, hold on. We're actually going to take out the factory organizers and we're going to run cover to cover. Because cover to cover is a very fun card that gives us lots of AT, and that's what we should take advantage of. Okay. Now, while we're in here, let's look for any uniqueness. I'm not seeing anything. Okay. Well, that's fine. So basically what we're doing is we're trying to maximize the splashing of our colors. Utilizing the color orange, there's some things we can do to help us in the way to victory. We could run Big Mac, but we're not going to. Let's go ahead and let me look at this again. Okay. So the idea is to copy stuff. So we can also copy on interplay abilities. So what we want to do is, now what we have to remember is that Queen Chrysalis Identity Theft is a unique friend. That means we can only have one in play at a time. So that means we can only copy either Princess Luna Midnight or Plaid Stripe Spoonie. We cannot copy both of them. So what we need is that we're going to need something to help us. And that is a event called Dip in the Pool, which is underneath the color pink. Not no color. So Dip in the Pool requires 4 pink rack. That's going to be a little tricky to get, especially since it costs 3 to play, and we don't really have any way to power up our main at the moment. So the best way to do this is to run some pink friends. I think it's going to be the easiest way to do this. So let's go ahead and throw in a couple staple pink cards that we will have to color fix into. But because we're basing this around taking friends, let's go ahead and run 3 Berry Punch and Orange Swirls. And then I guess we could run 2 Bait and Switch. No. What we're going to do with 3 of those, we're going to run triple Belly Flop. Now this is going to be a really awkward deck, and I guarantee you it will work. I just don't know how well it'll work. So we're looking at this, and we're saying, okay, we got 3 Berry Punch and Orange Swirls. We got a couple white friends, but a lot of this is TMs and a lot of other stuff. So how is this deck supposed to play? And that's the question. This is a really weird deck. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be blocking off both problems. And then we're going to sit there and not be able to fight them. And it's just a silly deck that sounds like an interesting concept. But what we need to do is get Princess Luna Midnight out, which is not going to be easy because of the way this deck is. But basically you have so many TMs, you're going to sit there, and the moment they play a powerful friend, you can just steal it with Green Chrysalis, Commanding Queen. And that's what you're going to use her for, is you're going to take that one friend that they really want. And actually, I'm going to go back here and say, okay, I'm actually going to go back and drop my number of Lunas. We don't need a whole bunch of them. We don't need all three. We probably just need one. We just need one Luna because she's not actually all that essential. This gives us essentially 2 more slots. I'm going to take out Belly Flop. Belly Flop's not actually that intriguing enough to run. We have the Berry Punch and Orange Swirls, but that's if we want to copy their unique friend. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into pink for friends. And let's try to make sure that we can actually do a lot of different things. Because the worst thing is that you don't want to be stuck being able to do nothing. So we're going to use 2 Schadenfreudes. And I think we'll use 3 Holiday Spirits. This will give us our pink wreck. And then we'll have to splash in for Princess Twilight Sparkle cover to cover to give us our 18 generation. But I think overall that will work pretty well. It's a lot of color fixing, a lot of TMs, but what we want to do is take their friends and use their friends to our advantage. And that's how this deck is going to run. We're also going to copy their friends' abilities, so that way they can't say anything about it. So when they go and take their friend back, we still keep their friend's ability. We keep it. So that's kind of the concept. It's like stealing ponies. It's kidnapping ponies, which Queen Chrysalis is very good at. So now let's go ahead and do the problem decks. The last part of the deck. Let's go ahead and start with 2 Trading Tradition. This deck is heavily dependent on your color fixing, so you're going to need that. To stop your opponent from successfully defeating a troublemaker and confronting, we want to run Equals Propaganda. This will help slow down the effects of some of our TMs being worth 2 and 3. This creates a scoring cap. After that, what we want to do is use some control stuff. We want to use 2 blackmail, 2 unreasonable demands. And then for the last problem, we're going to want to hold them up to prevent them from moving characters to our problem. And that should total out my thieving deck. It's a thieving deck, basically. So let's go ahead and take a look at this monstrosity of a deck that's probably not even that good. There's people that could definitely probably build it better than me, but it's an interesting concept. Let's take a look at this real quick. So there we go. Here's the deck. That is a really, really efficient problem deck, I will say that. Where no one wants to see any of these. So here we go, Commanding Queen. We pay 3 to gain control of an opposing friend. Turn this card over. And then here we go, here are our TMs. So this is why Equalist Propaganda is really nice, because it stops your opponent from being able to score everything on this card. If they do defeat it, they get 3 points, but they can't score any more that turn, which means that they can't, they can confront the problem, but they cannot DFO. And this one's nice. At the start of a face-off involving this card, you may gain control of an opposing friend until the end of the face-off. That is nice. That'll help keep our powers high and so forth. This moves all their friends home, of course, and this will allow us to gain control of another friend if we need to. So here we go. We got Minuet for control, cover to cover, splashed in for AT generation. We got plaid stripes for the purpose of copying it. 1 Luna, because we don't need 3 Lunas. We just need the 1. We're not going to be relying on it. We're relying on our opponent's friends. But what we can do is we can take this Luna, scare her, copy her with identity theft or dip in the pool. So that's how we're going to play this deck. Honestly, I think it's an intriguing deck, and I do like the concept. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining me for Gaming is Magic. Once again, I will go ahead and post this deck into the chat. So there you guys go. There's the 3rd deck. And so anyways, guys, that was an interesting stream. These are all going to be kind of solo until I can get things fully figured out with the Gaming is Magic team. So thanks for tuning in and watching me deck build for the night. I have to say that was an intriguing stream. Those are 3 very interesting decks. You guys are more than welcome to test them out if you so choose. Once again, thank you for your support, and look forward to seeing you ponies at TrotCon, BronyCon, and Gen Con, as well as Ponyville Cider Fest. And as always, this is Dratta Arcana at Gaming is Magic, and we'll see you guys next time. And yeah, well, that's it. I mean, this is kind of a boring stream, I guess. But hey, you know what? I'm going to continue to make content regardless every week. See you guys next week. Bye.